Hello and welcome to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. We've got a great show for you today. First, I want to remind you to please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast, The Carl Jackson Show. Follow me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Support our sponsor, MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell is offering fabulous deep discounts on all products, 50% off of the Giza sheets right now. All you have to do is use my name, MyPillow.com. Click on the radio podcast square, enter Carl, or give them a call at 800-858-0263, 800-858-0263. Okay, guys, I want to get right to my guest. I'm excited to have my guest with me today. The left hates the traditional family, the nuclear family. And I want to dig into that. I want to understand why. And I think this is the best guest out there that can help me to do just that. So I want to introduce to you Terry Schilling. He is with the American Principles Project. Terry, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show.
Thanks so much for having me, Carl. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to this discussion. Absolutely,
man. Terry, I got to tell you, we were talking offline just a little bit here, and I can't believe, I can't believe the state that we're in today in the United States of America. There's so many issues that I want to get, specific issues that I want to talk to you about, but just the absolute hostility against the traditional family. I saw this starting to take place a long time ago. I fought a custody battle when I was, listen, this was BC. This was before Christ. All right. So I was doing a lot of stupid things, but I had to fight like heck to be a dad. And it was an honorable thing. Now today, I mean, the nuclear family, you got Black Lives Matter that was just like, hey, screw the nuclear family, all this kind of stuff. How did we get here? How do you explain the hostility for the traditional family? Not just a disregard or, okay, well, they're doing that thing, but just the straight up hostility towards the nuclear family.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? I think a lot of this hatred and animosity towards the family is driven in large part by our leaders, our cultural leaders, and the institutions that those leaders have taken over. But ultimately, I think what's really driving even those people to hate the family and want to destroy it is their own toxic experiences with their own family, right? And it doesn't mean that you grew up without a father. They've done lots of studies where, children who lost a father in war or lost a father to cancer, they don't typically perform as well as the kids that have an active father in their life, but they're not as bad as the fathers that abandon them or as the fathers that neglect them, that don't, work to build a relationship with them. But at the same time, so you have, the cultural institutions, they're pushing policies, they're indoctrinating the next generation and spreading this cancer of hating the family. Then you have people that just really had bad experiences with their own family. They have daddy issues. They have mommy issues, which mommy issues I think can be even worse than daddy issues.
Agreed.
But at the same time, you have all of these policies that good everyday American people have allowed to take place in this country unchecked, right? And I think this is something else we were talking about right before the show, is like we kind of thought none of this stuff could happen here. We thought America was an exceptional nation, and it still is an exceptional nation in this regard. The people are good. And so, but that has presented an opportunity to the enemies of our country, the enemies of the family, the enemies of God to take advantage, because think about just one example. Think about what they're doing to children when it comes to gender. They're putting them on chemical castration drugs. They're giving them permanent, unalterable surgeries that they'll never recover from. They'll never be able to have children again. The things they're doing are not just like bad, they're unthinkable.
Yes.
And their best defense has been, it's not happening. But you know what? It's great when it does, right? They gaslight you. That's been their best defense. And so you just have this perfect storm of a complacent nation that has had a lot of prosperity, a lot of freedom. And we allowed this stuff to happen because it wasn't immediately threatening my life and my lifestyle. Well, it's threatening your grandchildren's lifestyle because they don't know what gender is even anymore. They think that men can have babies now because they go to public school. But ultimately, I think the thing that's scariest noticed is that the abolition of the family, and that's what America has been going through, a slow abolition of the family over the past few decades, is how you get a tyrant. It is how you get an authoritarian government that comes in and takes over everything. Because if people don't have children of their own, if they don't have parents of their own, if they can euthanize their parents and get their inheritance earlier, right? They have no loyalty to anyone besides the government, right? They have no ability. They have no other loyalties besides to themselves, which is very cheap. You might think that it's people that believe in themselves and are self-motivated, are inspirational people, but those are actually the least inspirational people ever. They're usually just full of themselves. They don't question their decisions. They don't question who they are. It's all about the family. It's about self-sacrifice. That's what love is, right? And that's what family brings to the world is love. And I mean that in like a very literal and definitive way, is that family is love. When you have children, I kind of sound like Kamala Harris right there. But when you have children, you're forced to sacrifice, right? And that's the real, actual definition of love. Love is not, an attachment to something or someone. It's not an affinity for someone. It's the willingness to sacrifice and ultimately die for someone else's betterment. And you do that for your children. You do that for your spouse. You don't do that for complete strangers if you're not willing to do that for your own children, right? I'm going to turn it back to you in just a sec, but I want to make one more point. No. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, charge of the military, right, is out promoting abortion for servicemen and women. I just want to make something very clear. When you join the military, you are sacrificing yourself for your fellow countrymen. You are putting your life on the line. You're putting your health on the line. You're putting so much on the line. You're giving up a lot of financials and opportunities. If you're not willing to sacrifice some convenience so that for your own flesh and blood, you will not do that for your fellow countrymen. You are the person that will run from battle, right? It's a lot easier I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to have a baby in an inconvenient situation or even a tough situation than it is to deal with shrapnel and bullets flying across your head, right? This is not rocket science.
I gotta tell you here, Terry, like, every once in a while, you get a guest where you're like, okay, I'm just going to shut up and let this guy go. You're one of them. You hit on some issues. Honestly, while people talk, sometimes I wasn't great at interviews at first. I still don't think I'm great now, but I've gotten much better because I've conducted so many of them. But again, you come across a guest every once in a while. While they're talking, I'll pick up on points just like you were, and I'm jotting stuff down. People can see me on camera. By the way, subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Rumble channel as well. But I'm sitting here and I'm taking down notes, and I'm like, and I'm writing other questions as you go because I only had a few, and then I'm like, I like talking to guests and kind of just following up. You hit a couple right off the bat that I was like, man, great explanation. And I was sitting there jotting down the questions, and then you're already there. And I'm like, man, praise God. So there's two that I want to go back to, actually three that I want to go back to real quickly that you touched on, that I just want to break down or have you break down just a little further. You talked about this was in passing. So obviously you think about this stuff a lot, but I was writing down scared to wind up in a nursing home. Now, I'm not with my child, thank God. I have my daughter's a little, I mean, she'll fight like crazy to make sure things go right. She's one of those people, but I fear for a lot of people that aren't thinking long term. A lot of these leftists or even Republicans, whatever, that are out there, and they're not really paying attention to these issues. They don't care about these issues. They don't really fight for these issues. And I sit there and think, man, the country has gone so crazy so quickly. God forbid you're in a nursing home one day. Do you think this current generation is going to care about you whatsoever? You don't think there's going to be euthanasia where they're like, I don't want to deal with my parents anymore. This is crazy. I mean, so you touched on that. I want you to unpack that a little more. And then you talked about the military. What a great example. There are a lot of people that are going after Senator Tuberville. By the way, and I'm going to do this myself. Call the White House switchboard or Washington, D.C. switchboard, I'm sorry, or Congress, 202-224-3121, and tell that man thank you for standing up. I know there's a lot of Republicans that feel differently, but I loved how you broke that down. If you're not going to fight for the innocent child, why would you fight for your fellow man? So go ahead. Oh, and mommy issues. So we got three things: mommy issues, nursing homes, Senator Tuberville.
So let me start with the first one, nursing homes. I hate them, but I want to be clear, right? There are many situations where you do need advanced help and care, right?
My dad is in one now, so I'm not anti-nursing home. I want to be clear. I just want to make sure that people know you should care for your family member, that you're, checking up on them and all that kind of good stuff.
Right. And part of, I think, one of the benefits of having a bunch of kids and being open to God's plan for the size of your family is that you'll have that additional support to help take care of you in your final days. I view this very simply, right? When you start a family, you get married and you have a baby, you are taking care of that new life for 18 years, at least, right? You are changing their diapers, you are feeding them, you are sheltering them, you're clothing them, you're educating them, you're giving them everything they need, right? And so I think, in the final 10 years of a parent's life, I think it's okay to expect the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, however many God gives you, children, to all kind of pitch in and make sure that their parents have a comfortable final 10, 15, 20 years of their life. It's just we took care of you, please return the favor and take care of us. There's only 2 of us, right? There's more of you, ideally, to help take care of us. So I've seen a lot of really bad things personally in nursing homes. I've read horrific stories about nursing homes. You see these videos online about, showing, these senior citizens getting abused. And listen, it takes love to take care of these people, right? They smell bad. They wear diapers. It's disgusting to change diapers. It's tough work to feed someone with a spoon every day. You have to do it with love, right? You have to have the most caring people. You can't just hire anyone off the street. It takes a special person to work in nursing care, but that's why family is the best equipped. I'm not going to flip out and throw my dad on the floor because he had an accident, And I learned something about that directly when my dad passed away about 2 years ago. He had an advanced form of cancer, a colon cancer, and it was a lot. We had to take care of him and feed him and change his bags and hold his hand, and it was intense, but I could not do that for a total stranger, right? I would love to get to that point someday where I could serve a total stranger that way in a charitable way, but I could really only do that for a family member. I could really only do the stuff I did for my dad. And so, and also it's kind of a for-profit industry now. Right, the whole nursing home system. They take millions of dollars out of families and away from the kids, and they don't give these people the best care in the world. Right, I just think that there's just a lot of corruption there. Secondly, the abortion in the military and Tuberville, right? First of all, you're exactly right. Coach Tommy is such a great guy. He's such a hero. He's just doing something that's basic that really we should be having every Republican do, which is ask basic questions and make them go through the regular process instead of just streamlining through all these garbage promotions. This is the most incapable and corrupt military America's ever had, and they're trying to get promotions for themselves. We just had a disaster of a withdrawal in Afghanistan, and they're upset because we're not giving them promotion. You don't deserve a promotion.
Yeah.
You're forcing this DEI garbage in school. You have drag queens on naval bases, right? Like this is totally nuts. It's totally insane. And you're promoting abortion. You were trying to attract the type of people to the military that are willing to sacrifice their own children so they won't be inconvenienced. Well, that's not really someone that's going to die for me, a complete stranger that they've never met on the battlefield. battlefield. Those are the types of people that join the military for their own personal and financial gain, to pay for their colleges and pay for their sex change procedures. We don't want people that want their abortions covered by the military in the military. It is not the same values that are required for being a good serviceman or woman. And then what was the last thing you brought up? You asked another really good question. Mommy issues.
Mommy issues and how they can be worse. Single mother issues, how they can be worse for a child on occasion.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I read this article in Reason. And Reason, by the way, is a libertarian magazine. They're not socially conservative by any means, but they did some studying and some research, and they found that fathers are the ones who instill empathy. And I was shocked by that, right? Because I don't really think of myself as like instilling empathy in my children. But what they pointed out and they found in their research was that because fathers are kind of self-centered, like we're willing to sacrifice, but we get home from work, we have our man cave, we have our workshop, we have our own things, and we buy things for ourselves. Well, we're the ones that make, because we're kind of self-centered, at least more than the moms. The moms are always like
following me around with that description there, Terry.
Well, when we get home from work, right, and you go to your workshop and your kids got into your tools, and one of my kids broke one of my drills, and I said, how much I told my son, I said, do you know how much money I had to pay for that? You know how hard I had to work to get that drill, and you broke it? That is what instills empathy. It's the fathers who are so self-concerned that go and yell at their kids. They're the ones forcing them to think about other people, right?
Wow.
Whereas mothers, it's really cool. But mothers are the nurturers, right? So like and granted, there are exceptions to every rule, blah, 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 standard disclaimer. But mothers instill, self-esteem and self-confidence. And I mean, dads do that too. Dads actually do a lot of self-confidence, but mothers nurture their kids. They grow them. They give them what they need for sustainability. But if you have a bad mom that that neglects you, right, or is very cold, that's a very cold person. And there are studies that show that like there are increased mental issues with people that had an absent mother or a neglectful mother or an abusive mother. It's a totally different thing. Like with dads, primarily what they bring to the table is they teach kids empathy and restraint. Right. Wow. So like with my boys, right, you wrestle around with them when they're little kids and then they clock you in the face because they took it too far. Well, you sit them down and you teach them, hey, you can't go that far. So dads naturally teach limits. They instill discipline. They're the disciplinarians. And so they keep kids from getting out of control. But with a bad mom, you kind of become you can go a lot of different ways, but there are a lot of different problems that you can become a very cold person. Wow. that can't connect with anyone, that really doesn't even want to reach out to someone, because like your mother shows you love in a very direct way. She's sacrificing nonstop. She's doing your laundry. She's cooking for you. She's telling you how handsome you are. You know what I mean? Like they instill a lot of that self-confidence in you. And when you don't have that, you're very vulnerable, especially for young boys.
Wow. But I got to tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt here. As you're speaking of that, I'm literally thinking of people that I know, and I'm like, that explains it. Seriously.
Oh yeah. No, we all know. I mean, that was a moment for me when I read that Reason article about fathers instilling empathy. It's something just clicked, and I'm like, oh, that's why that he didn't have a dad growing up. That's why he's kind of like a narcissist. He doesn't think about anyone. You know what I mean? So like, and then I started thinking like, well, what's it like with mommy issues? Like what do moms? And so you just go down a rabbit trail and you learn very quickly just how important it is to have an active mother and an active father. You really miss out when you don't have one or the other.
Wow. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. So there's some obvious issues. And again, I'm speaking to Terry Schilling. He is the president of American Principles Project. Where do they find you online or on social media? I want to make sure that I mention that before I end up forgetting here. Terry?
It's AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. That's our website where you can sign up to get engaged and find action alerts on legislation. Or you can follow me on social media. I'm basically on everything: Instagram, Twitter, or X now, I guess. Getter, True Social at Schilling 1776. SCHILLING 1776.
Okay, we're gonna have to host a Twitter space together or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be really fun.
I found American Principles Project, but I'm gonna make sure that I follow you at Schilling 1776. Okay, so I will look for that. Obviously, there's some issues that I want to get to, some specific issues. For instance, just the trans issue that has blown up, and I gotta tell you, I am shocked by the cowardice. I know there's powers that be. I mean, I was on air. I can't remember for who. I think Dennis Prager is substituting at one time or something, and or Larry Elder one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I had found this article from the Federalist, and it was basically all of these people that were either gay or billionaires, trans billionaires, or multi millionaires that were shelling out so much money to make sure this stuff was infiltrated into society. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, even if they are, this is going to remain somewhat. I mean, it's going to be a very small portion of the population, 1/10 of 1%. People aren't going to go this far. And I'm shocked. I'm sitting here. I was reading a conservative site this morning, Terry, where they were talking about that guy that wears the big fake prosthetic boobs in Canada. And they were referring to him as a her. And I'm like, this is insane. Not only are the left cowardice in bowing down to this nonsense, but I even see quote unquote conservatives acquiescing to the language. And I'm like, stop it. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, no. So they have a real system in place. First of all, the thing to understand, this is an industry. It's primarily an industry. They're making billions of dollars a year off of it. That's not an exaggeration. That's billion with a B. And they're reinforcing that through nonprofit organizations, right? So the profiteers, basically, they take those profits and they give them to a 501c3 educational organization to help push these policies in schools and push PR campaigns to basically propagandize in America on it and sell it to the American people. So think about this. It's kind of like a farm, right? They're laying the seeds through PR campaigns and education, and literally in our public education system. That, by the way, that we shouldn't discount the impact that public education has on a country, right? It's almost $1 trillion a year that we spend on K through 12 education in tax dollars. That's a lot of cultural influence.
Yes, it is.
So they're sowing those seeds. But here's the most important part. Any weeds that pop up that try to kill those seeds from sprouting, from indoctrinating people and attack the source of that, they chop them down. Right? They've got pesticide. They've got the mainstream media to come in and make sure you never get a job again. Sure. They have, local campaigns that'll come in and attack you. They have local activists that'll come protest your business and shut that down if you tweet that you're not going to allow men to use the girls' room. Right? Like, they have a whole ecosystem that they've created. The thing I just really want to hit on regarding trans, it is an industry. It didn't explode until Barack Obama declared that gender identity discrimination was unlawful under civil rights law. They reinterpreted sex under civil rights law to include gender identity. And what happened then is Obamacare, and at the direction of Kathleen Sebelius at Health and Human Services, it started to cover and mandate coverage for sex change procedures, chemical castration drugs, cross-sex hormones, even for children. Because here's the thing. We give Lupron to children that have what's known as precocious puberty. It shuts down your hormone-producing glands and stops puberty from developing. And some kids actually, believe it or not, get puberty at like 5 years old. And it's a bad thing because it stunts their growth. And so they give them Lupron to stop that, and then they kind of manage the hormone treatments throughout the kid's young life. It's a very good drug when used the right way, but there's a lot of side effects. So this health insurance company basically said, well, we give Lupron to kids with precocious puberty, so technically we do provide it, so we're now discriminating against transgender
Wow.
identifying people if we don't give it to them. Same thing for hysterectomy, right? If you have cancer and you have to get a hysterectomy, well, that is discrimination if we're not also giving that to someone that identifies as a man when they were born as a woman. You can go on, but that's how this played out. And so once the insurance companies had to cover it and pay for it, and people didn't have to get it out of their own pocket, you create a lot of problems, because now you can get kids when they're young and impressionable. I mean, there's a reason why we have laws that say that kids can't smoke before they're 18. It's because they're really impressionable. And if you get a kid smoking at 9 years old, they're going to smoke for the rest of their life. Right, you get them hooked young when they're dumb, and by the way, kids are dumb. Right, they're both smart, but they're also really dumb. Right. And it's okay because their brains aren't fully formed. But we need to stop acting like, you hear this all the time from the left-wing trans activists. Oh, I believe my children. We need to believe the children when they tell us who they are. Kids don't know who the hell they are. Right. And by the way, you as a parent, your job is to help them become what they're supposed to be, right? You can't separate the individual from the family. We're all the same. We're all related like that. And you are part of a family, and the parents do have the role of helping shape you. And if you want to argue that that's not the role and we should change our laws in society, well, then you better start figuring things out real quick and come up with your proposals now, because you can't do this quietly. You can't sneak it through the back door, through the courts, and have this be an administrative state thing. This has to be an American decision. It has to be a voter's decision. We have to vote up and down on it. It has to be a political decision where the American people actively choose, are we going to abolish the family or not? Right. I think part of the thing that gets me going is that they've abolished the family in so many different ways. No fault divorce. Was that ever voted on? No. The courts did it by fiat. Abortion, was that ever voted on actually? Well, yeah, the states were actually starting to pass legislation for limited cases, but the Supreme Court struck all those laws down. Gay marriage, pornography online. We had an age verification law in 1999 that protected kids online from porn, and the Supreme Court struck that down because it infringed on the rights of porn users. What the heck is going on? The American people passed a law through their elected representatives, and 9 justices struck it down. This is crazy. So I just, everything for me, if we're going to abolish the family, it's such a monumental decision. It's such a monumental shift in who we are as human beings, even not even as Americans, but as human beings. You have to at least have a vote on it. You have to at least get a majority vote to abolish the family in this country. That's my job, right? Like, that's why we put everything in politics, and we don't want the courts involved. We don't want Health and Human Services enacting these in the deep state and administrative state and doing this stuff. We want the American people to make an active choice. So then at least I can't blame some unelected, bureaucrats. Sure. I have to at least blame my neighbor for being so stupid and foolish and putting us all through this. It has to be an American decision.
Man, that is just so well said. So well said. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. There's a couple of issues that I want to go over before we go here. There's some pro-life activists that were just convicted in Washington, D.C. They traveled to Washington, D.C., protested in front of the doors and I believe even the hallway of an abortion clinic, if I recall correctly. Anyway, they're now facing 11 years in prison. We've heard of the two-tier justice system. Frankly, I don't even think that describes it accurately. I don't think that's what we're seeing. I do believe, as some have called it, a hierarchy. It's basically, if you believe in left-wing communist values, then you're good with the DC elites. But if you don't, if you believe in traditional values, if you believe in family, if you believe in life, somehow you're the evil one, and you're going to pay the price for it. Your take on these pro-life activists that are literally looking at 11 years in prison. Oh, and let me tag this on. Where's the GOP in this? I consider myself, I consider myself a conservative, but I'm so done with that. We didn't conserve anything. So now I'm a constitutional restorationist. I'm getting tired of labeling myself because the GOP just stink right now.
Yeah. No, look, I think the biggest problem with the Republican Party is their brand, right? And their brand is that of a loser. They never deliver. They are timid. They are cowardly. They shy away from issues. They try to fool voters. They say stupid things like, when they get attacked on wanting to ban all abortions, which, by the way, I don't know many Republicans that want to do that. Instead of saying, hey, I support a 15-week bill with exceptions for rape and incest, my opponent supports unrestricted access to abortion. They're the extremists. Instead of doing that, they say, "Oh, I'm running to address inflation." Really, you're running to address inflation? Are you going to reform the Federal Reserve? Are you going to take us back to a gold standard? How are you going to address inflation, sir? They just lie and obfuscate. It's such a loser brand, and it's pathetic. But here's the hope, right? Here's the change: is the president. The president is the leader of the party. The president has such an outsized influence and pull over the party that if you get just one powerful, charismatic guy, and I think that, for the longest time that's been Trump, and I think it's been a really healthy thing that he's done for this country. He's at a minimum, right? You can criticize him for some things, but at a minimum, he has turned the Republican Party into a more pugnacious bunch, right? You have a new generation of leaders that are at least willing to throw a few punches.
Sure.
And so I find that very helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry I went on a rant and about the pro-lifers. I think it's absolutely, positively, 100% criminal what they are doing to these pro-lifers. And the reason why I think that is because, one, they're exercising their First Amendment rights. They're exercising their conscience, right? If you think that someone is going to walk in front of a bus and get killed, you have a duty to stop that. Or at least say, don't go into the street, right? And then, in fact, I think that there are some cases where if you don't take action to stop someone from dying and they're going to die, you can actually be prosecuted for that. So I just want to say that that's criminal. It's a violation of their rights. The presidential field should be in unison saying that they will pardon these people, right? And but secondly, I want to contrast this with how this country treats protesters, really rioters and destroyers, and I would say criminal gangs, possibly a enemy combatants who actually want to tear down this country, like Antifa. They burned down this country last year, a few years ago, all over the country. They burned down all of our major cities. I mean, they had fires outside the White House. They were about to actually breach the gates of the White House. There's stories from the Secret Service where they thought they were going to break through. Right. And what are we doing to those people? Are we prosecuting them? No.
Yeah.
We're doing the exact opposite. We're paying them. We are giving these people, some of these cities in Atlanta and Milwaukee, there's a few others on the West Coast, they're actually paying these people money in damages for wrongful imprisonment. Right? Kamala Harris, you go down and burn a city on behalf of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, Kamala Harris is going to go out and fundraise for your bail. Right? These are evil, evil, evil people. And their intent is to destroy this country. But it's not just to destroy this country. That's too esoteric. They want to destroy you. Yeah. You are why they want to destroy this country. They don't control you. They hate that they don't control you. They hate that in America, we're free to live our lives. We have the ability to buy a home and we don't have to live in their condo buildings, right? That we don't have to live in their garbage, rat infested buildings in New York City. They hate that. They want to control your life. They want to control your car. They don't want you to be able to drive when you're using public transportation. They want you to live the most miserable, cheapest life ever. They want you to own nothing and be happy with it. and that's why they want to destroy this country. It's not they want to destroy this country to get to you. That is the point, right? It's not, America's done bad things. No, they're coming for you, right? They're using the sins of our ancestors to take over our lives and destroy our children. My kids didn't do anything wrong. My kids they do a lot of bad things, actually. But it's kind of funny.
But
right?
They didn't do that.
They didn't do all this stuff that you're claiming against America, right? My kids are cool. My kids love, sport. They love all types of cultural icons and leaders. Like they don't discriminate. My son Bobby's obsessed with WWE. He knows every guy, and he gets so excited just seeing these guys. We went to WrestleMania this year. It was a great experience.
I have some radio colleagues, the American Adversaries, and they fashioned their show after WWE. It's pretty amazing. They're the same, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. I tell you what. Good stuff. Just real quickly to touch on this issue of reparations and whites are automatically the oppressor, and I'm like, I just sit there and think people don't read. I look at history and how it's shaped, and I'm like, the vast majority of people that are in this country today, over 90% and probably closer to 95%, or immigrated, their ancestry immigrated to the United States after the Civil War. So I'm like, okay, you guys figure out the 5% of people that are involved. See if you can work it out with them and see. I mean, honestly, I don't really believe that, but it's such a stupid argument. I don't even understand why people take it seriously. A lot of people say to me, "Well, Carl, I can't believe you say this because you're black," and I'm like, I wouldn't even entertain it. I'm like, I don't even entertain fake racism. Listen, you are living in America, black people. You're living in America. I guarantee you, there's no other place you'd rather be, and it's pretty simple. We see people that flock here, people like from Nigeria that make great lives here in the United States of America. What I don't see are black people flocking or leaving the United States and flocking some other place. So I'm like, just please shut up. I just get so tired of these arguments, and I get tired of even people on the right that just won't say, "I'm sorry, that's a really stupid argument. I'm not dealing with it. I'm sorry."
Yeah,
that's just me.
No, look, like, name another nation where Michael Jordan would have become the cultural icon that he became.
Yes.
Right. Besides America, name another nation where Dr. Dre would make it. Right. Name another nation where Oprah Winfrey, right, is in the homes of every white woman, every suburban white woman in America. Like, it doesn't. We actually had race relations pretty under control in this country until Obama.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I grew up with all these black heroes. I had an Penny Hardaway jersey. Right. I had a Shaquille O'Neal jersey. I had a Scottie Pippen jersey. I had a Michael Jordan. I mean, like, I look at like my childhood. Like, half of the guys I looked up to were black. I didn't think about them as that, right? And that was what was beautiful. It was like they just played really good basketball, right? Yeah. They had really cool songs, right? They had good beats. Like by the way, like, the food is phenomenal, right? Yeah. Like but that was my childhood. I was born in '86. Like, I don't know, maybe I just had exceptional parents. I was raised in a super white town. Like, I just think we had it under control.
We did. We were over it. Listen, I was born in '77, and I'm like, listen, there were a couple of times in my life where some whites called me the N-word, but it was just it was I was a kid. It hadn't happened since, and then my experience has been, oh wow, okay, 2 compared to the hundreds that I've met over the years that have been so kind, and so many people that helped me out along my route getting, into radio and podcasting and all this kind of stuff, where I'm like, wow. I mean, the good far outweighs the bad. And I feel the same way. I tell this story often, and I've told it on radio. I can remember literally working in my yard one day, and I see and I kid you not, it's like a commercial. It's like somebody was filming a commercial, but they weren't. It was like, if I recall correctly, a white girl, an Asian kid, an Asian boy, all teenage age, a black boy and a white boy walking together with a dog. I can't remember. One of them dribbling a basketball and just laughing and talking. I remember seeing that, Terry, and I was like, dude, we made it. And then Obama got into office. And I'm telling you, you already know because you've been telling us, but he literally, I really feel like, I hope this guy repents, because a lot of people on the left even didn't think he was a great president. I'm like, no, he was amazing for the left. He did exactly what he wanted to do. Yeah. He set the foundation of fundamentally transforming America. And then you have this dementia patient that's in the White House now and his staff that are building on the foundations that Obama laid.
Well, there was a Tablet magazine interview a few weeks ago with David Garrow, who just wrote a biography about Obama, and he's actually MLK. I mean, I wasn't going to go down the road I think a lot of people who had also read it was going to go down. I think the thing that fascinated me most, was the letters, but Obama, basically every president, when they get done serving, they leave DC. They go back to their home. They go back, just like Cincinnatus, like they take the power and then they go back and return to being a farmer. Obama stayed in DC, and he's like close to the White House. Why is that? It's because he's still president. He's still making the calls. Biden's not making any calls. No one actually believes that. And if you do, I'd like to talk to you about a bridge I own in Alaska. But yeah, he was a power hungry narcissist, and probably the worst president America's ever had. And we've had some bad ones, but he was definitely the worst president we've ever had.
Man, yeah, so well said. And I had the same takeaway as well. I mean, all the gay stuff in the letters, that's fun for Twitter Spaces and stuff like that. But I'm like, ultimately, whatever. Even
daily fantasizing daily about that. I mean, that's a weird thing to write, man. I mean, a daily, and you're writing that to your girlfriend. It's super weird. I mean, what was like code for something else? That was the only thing I could think of.
That was, but I had the same takeaway as you though. I'm like, as fun as that was, that wasn't the big issue. The big issue was, you're exactly right, there's a shadow government in essence being run in Washington, D.C. by Obama. All right, last thing I'm going to ask you, COVID and the COVID lockdowns, the impact that it has had on children, educationally, spiritually, you name it. COVID lockdowns have destroyed Generation Z coming up. And I mean, I don't think we're going to get over this for God knows how long. And you see the left trying to do it again. Talk to us quickly as we close, the impact that COVID lockdowns have had on young children, how it's damaged them.
Yeah, well, it's psychologically damaging. It's actually an extreme societally imposed version of child abuse. When you remove children and their ability to see each other's faces, it dehumanizes them. Right? You're no longer your smile is so important to who you are, and it builds your self-esteem. So from a psychological level, we have done so much emotional and psychological damage to children. It's so bad. But I one thing that bothers me is the claims that COVID had a really bad impact on kids' education. It's not because I disagree with it. It did. It actually, definitely we saw a huge drop in educational achievement during that time, and even after, and we're not even recovering. But the educational achievement levels were already declining.
Yeah.
Right. They were, this is part of the plan, right? They don't want you to be smart. They want you to be able to push a button. They want you to be able to do basic duties and have basic responsibility. They don't want you asking questions. They don't want you trying to think. You are not an expert, right? The one thing about this ruling class is that they don't think you should have an opinion on anything unless you have a degree, unless you have some type of certification and you've been approved by the thought leaders that we have instilled in this society to have an opinion on something. So I just hate the whole education system. I think it's completely corrupted. I think it's totally rotted. I think it's run for the benefit of teachers unions. And I think there's a lot of really good teachers that are trapped in that. And you got to look for those teachers and reward the heck out of them, because there are still some really good teachers.
Sure.
But these guys are so corrupted. They're indoctrinating our kids. They're not even teaching them how to read and write. In my home county right now, Fairfax County, Virginia, 29% of eighth graders can read at grade level. 29% are proficient.
Can.
Yeah, can't. 29%. 71% can't.
Oh, can't.
That's insane.
Wow.
71% can't, cannot.
Wow.
That's more than 2/3 are illiterate.
I had to. Wow. Okay, that is insane. And
that's not. This is one of the best school districts in the country, by the way. We spend $19,000 per pupil in the public education system here. $19,000 for that. My kids should not only know how to read and write, they should know Greek, they should know Latin, they should know Spanish, a little Italian, maybe even a little Hungarian. I don't know, but they should know
how
a
to
lot
build
more for
skyscrapers and cars by the time they get out.
Right. Exactly.
Oh my God, that is absolutely insane. It's weird because you're confirming a lot of things that I believe. I mean, for years I've been like, oh my Lord, kids are just getting dumber and dumber and dumber. I don't have a college degree, but I can read, and I sit and I talk to people, and I'm like, good God.
You know,
I used to go on a local, Fox station and debate people, and there were some that I debated that were extremely intelligent and smart. And then they would bring some leftists on sometimes that would debate me, and I'm like, you have a degree? Like, I would feel insecure. And then I would be like, ooh, okay, never mind.
Yes. No. But here's why they're actually even more dumb than they realize, is because they think they're smart. They don't. You become really dumb when you think you know everything, right? When you think that you've reached a point, especially in your 20s, that you have gotten your college degree, so now you're an expert and you don't have anything more to learn. That's when you're actually a moron. That's when you're actually an idiot. Like the thing that I've learned, and I thought it was just like one of those sayings, that just gets repeated. Like the more you learn, the more you know you don't know, right? The more you know, the more wise you get. And that's why I knew this was going to be a conversation because of how this interview started. You start off by saying like, I've been getting better at interviews. I'm still not the greatest. Like that type of humility, it encourages hunger. It encourages growth. Like that's a good sign that the person you're talking to is an honest guy who wants to have a good conversation and doesn't think he knows everything. So props to you, but it's always good to remain humble and realize you might be wrong. Like you can have a strong opinion, but there's a 10% chance at least that you're wrong. Probably greater if you have a college degree. These guys, like I'll never forget. There's still that meme where this woman said, like, if you think your Wikipedia and Google searches are any match for my doctorate in political science, you got another thing coming. Like, I'm sorry, but like you had to get a doctorate in politics. Like that's a joke. Like you're actually pretty dumb, because like the founders didn't have degrees. Like Abraham Lincoln, no law degree, right? Like no law degree, studied as an apprentice under a lawyer, way smarter than anyone today. Right. Like, anyway, I'm ranting, but these college people.
Good stuff. Man, listen, we need to close it out, but I got to tell you, Terry, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you, man. I was looking forward to the interview, but you far surpassed. I hope this doesn't sound condescending, but you just don't know what you're going to get when you actually speak to someone. And honestly, I've learned a lot from you. So, and I hope the audience, I know the audience will do the same. If you would just, again, remind people of where they can go to find you. Again, I'm speaking to Terry Schilling, and he is the president of American Principles Project. Just let them know, again, where they can go to find you and help out your organization. Because quite frankly, and your organization helps with messaging. Oh, my Lord, the Republican Party needs you so badly. It is insane. They don't know how to message for the life of them, for the life of us too, frankly.
It's embarrassing. You can find us. We just launched a new report. It's called The Failed Red Wave, and we explain why Republicans completely screwed the pooch in the 2022 election and didn't get as many gains. Just go to failedredwave.com. And the report's right there. But AmericanPrinciplesProject.org is where you can find out more about us, and you can follow me on social media at Schilling1776 across all the platforms.
All right. I'm going to be checking all of this stuff out. Terry, listen, it has been such a pleasure to speak with you. And I hope you feel somewhat armed. And again, you can go to AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. failedredwave.com. Get solutions and messaging. I mean, very, very important. Messaging is so important. And these guys know how to do it. Obviously, you just heard Terry here, so he's fabulous. All right, so listen, guys. Again, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. You know that I'm on social media everywhere that I am. True Social, Getter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I have a lot of fun on Twitter, so that's probably the best place to correspond with me. So at The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me, and then all things, subscribe to the podcast, The Carl Jackson Show. All right, guys, until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.